I wanted to kind of get your thoughts on a few things. So first of all, I think the big promise of what makes, quote unquote, metaverse potentially interesting is kind of the commercialization of it, as compared to say like MMOs of yesteryear. I mean, we've had digital economies and large multiplayer, experiences, for the last couple decades in the gaming world. And I think one of the things that seems to be very exciting, or people are excited about in metaverse, is that this kind of idea of like portability of items and characters from, kind of world to world. How do you see that kind of playing out? Because it seems to me the biggest development cost for a game is the art. And it seems like even with NFTs being portable, each game has to interpret what that looks like in their game and create the art from scratch. So do you think you will start seeing the emergence of like portable like mesh formats? Like how do you see that actually playing out?
Yeah, so I can definitely speak from experience that like art is a really costly part of building games and building other kinds of more experiential applications. And when I talked about the Duro Dog, which is represented differently in multiple games, I think that it's a cool opportunity, but it's not to say that you can't reuse or sort of like commoditize different types of art or representations of these digital goods. And I absolutely think that that's something that is happening, will continue to happen. And I think that the main thing that I think different payments opens up is it creates a lot more upside for the artist in the first place, or for the digital creator. And I think that's really important. And it's not just from like the initial sale, because there's always going to be a cap on like, what am I willing to pay for an NFT, for example, especially if it's not an NFT that has any particular rarity. A lot of games, everyone plays with as the same character, or earns the same items. So there's not the same kind of rarity that there might be in other NFT ecosystems. But I think that if you look at how a lot of that art gets created and purchased today, what you have is you have the game developer builds the game, hires artists on platforms like Upwork, Fiverr, and pays like a fixed cost that's relatively low to artists in places like Ukraine or Pakistan or other parts of the world where that work is relatively affordable. And accordingly, the actual artists and asset creators have relatively little upside in their work. I think the way that this changes is that when I can license my work to games in like a recurring manner, where maybe I'm getting paid 1/10 of a cent, 100th of a cent for every use, I'm actually de-risking the purchase and utilization of that art to game developers and to creators, but I'm dramatically increasing my upside. So I think that, who's the richest animator in the world today? They're probably not, like, there's not that much money in it today. It's very popular because it's fun, but it's not a well compensated job. But I think in the future, you're going to see people who create digital goods that ultimately turn them into billionaires. And I think that trickles down in the sense that it creates this incentive to contribute to art that's more appropriate relative to how important that art is for these types of applications. And so we can dramatically increase the supply of these art assets by increasing the upside to the artists, by fixing the very high friction payments which stop these sorts of commercial models from emerging in the first place.